All right, Pickle. Let's talk a little bit. Let's round out our coverage of the State 7-on-7 tournament. We crowned. We were down in College Station for the State 7-on-7 tournament last weekend. 3 days in beautiful, scenic, air-conditioned College Station.
Yep, no lies detected there.
Two of those three things are true.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them is not because it was very hot. But we were down there at the State 7-on-7 tournament in College Station watching 128 teams do battle. And if you missed it, we had 3 champions. Division III champion, back-to-back, the Miles Bulldogs. Division II champion, back-to-back, the Hitchcock Bulldogs.
Let's go.
And in Division I, first-time champion, the Round Rock Dragons, took home the State 7-on-7 championships. And I understand people, because I used to be one, I understand people who are like, what's the big deal about 7-on-7? Who cares? And I get it. I used to be one. I'm a bit of a convert because I think that I've learned to know what to look for. And so but I do think that there's something to be said about getting that kind of experience, getting those kind of reps, getting that kind of competitive fires going deep into the summer. But I think the big question that everybody has every year is, yeah, that's great, but what does that tell us? Because there is nobody on earth who would say, yeah, I will trade a good season in the fall for a State 7-on-7 state championship. Nobody, okay? No, like players won't, coaches won't, fans won't, no one will do it. This is a nice chips and salsa, but nobody's just going to go there and be like, you know what? I just want chips and salsa. I don't want enchiladas, right?
Yep.
That's what we're saying. And so ultimately, the question is, how does this spin forward into fall? Now, we've done this segment more or less every year, talking about how teams that performed well in College Station did during the football season. And so the way that I kind of categorize doing well is,
I just looked at your graphic. The full screen.
Oh, okay. You'll get there. Anyway, the way that I categorize did well at 7-on-7 is if you made the Final Four. Okay? If you made the Final Four, then I think that you have I would say that you did pretty darn well. That means you won at least 3 win or go home games in bracket play, right? There in the championship bracket. We're not, for all due respect to our friends, we're not going to talk about the consolation bracket in Division I. So there were 12 state semifinalists this year, Division I, Division II, and Division III. For example, Round Rock, A&M Consolidated. Coppell was a state semifinalist, right? As well as Anna was a state semifinalist, right? Plus, of course, the champions. And so for those 12 teams, what does that mean going forward? Well, the best predictor of future is the past. And so what I did was I looked at the 12 teams that made the semifinals in last year's State 7-on-7 tournament.
So 2022.
The 2022 state tournament. And said, okay, how'd they end up doing in the fall? And certainly we've done this before, and it's been there can be years where all the teams are really good. There can be teams where a lot of the teams underachieve in the fall. But I think this particular group is about as indicative as it gets of what we usually see in the fall, again, writ large. There's no guarantee that if you won State 7-on-7 that you're going to be great. There's no guarantee that Miles, because they went to the State 7-on-7 championship, won the State 7-on-7 championship, is going to win an 11-man state championship. But what it does do to me is it tells me that they've got an opportunity to be pretty good in the fall. Because here's what the teams did last year from the 2022 state semifinalists. Okay, so let's look at Division I. DeSoto, Midlothian Heritage, Fort Bend Hightower, and Byron Nelson. So that's the Division I state semifinalists at 7-on-7. All 4 of them won at least 10 games. All 4 of them played on Thanksgiving. How about that? All 4 of them made it at least to the regional semifinals. That means they won at least 2 playoff games, right? Hightower, Byron Nelson, Midlothian Heritage, all state semifinals. And then, of course, there's DeSoto. DeSoto did the double dip, where they won the 7-on-7 state championship and then eventually won the 11-man state championship in 6A Division II. So in Division I, I think it would be pretty clear to say that, yeah, you know what? If you made it to the if you are in the state 7-on-7 semifinals, at least at the big school, things are boding pretty well for you in the fall. Division II, things get a little murkier. Hitchcock had a great year. Regional semifinalist, 11-2. They were one of the real breakout stars of 2022, right? Wichita Falls. Wichita Falls was a bit of a surprise, I think, last year, running all the way to the regional final. They went into the playoffs at 6-4, but then got hot at the right time. They make it to the regional final.
Dub.
Lorena was, of course, the defending state champion in 3A Division I. They faltered to 7-4, but they did make the playoffs and went to the playoffs. Then there's Ponder. Ponder is the outlier here. Ponder went 3-7, did not make the playoffs. So you've got three teams that I would say I'd say one team I'd say two teams had a great year.
No, yeah, Wichita Falls and Hitchcock.
Hitchcock and Wichita Falls had a great year. Lorena had an okay year, probably by their standards a little disappointing.
I was thinking, well, just in recent history, It was disappointing. I think that's about average for
I would say,
a long time.
Right.
Average, maybe a little bit lower than
average. And then
average.
for Ponder, I would say that it was a disappointing season, right? Division III, I think, tells about the same story. You've got a state champ, Gunner. You've got one of the big surprises in Texas high school football in Harmony. And if you want to talk about a team we should have seen coming, this is another one of those signposts we should have seen that Harmony was due for something. Because remember, they started the year, I want to say 1-4,
right?
Something like that, maybe 0-4, and then they went into the playoffs at 5-5, and then got hot and made it to the state semifinals. You had Miles, the defending the state champs. They went 8-3, made it to the playoffs, lost in the first round. Now remember, they are in the same district as state champion Albany. And then Brady. Brady did make the playoffs, but they went 5-6. But all four of them made the playoffs, and I would say again, two of them had great years. One of them had a pretty good year, I would say Miles, and one of them I would say had about an average year in Brady. So writ large, all 12 of these teams, think about it. Of them, 2 of them won the state championship. Of them, 11 of the 12 made the playoffs.
I would assume most of them won their district, too, looking at that list.
10 of the 12 finished with a winning record, right? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the 12 won at least one playoff game. So what does this tell us for the teams that made it to the state semifinals in 7-on-7 this year? I think it tells us that if history were to repeat itself, and right now that's all we got, that you can look for each of those teams, you can expect pretty good things from them. There will be a couple that disappoint. There will be a couple that fall flat. But I would say that you're looking at about an 80% chance of a winning record, right? You're probably looking at about a 90% chance of making the playoffs. And I would say you're probably looking at about a 60% chance of playing pretty deep in the playoffs. So for those 12 teams, I think they have a lot. There's reason to be excited because recent history would show you that there is a decent correlation between success at 7-on-7 and success in the fall.
Well, and I think especially, too, if you look at any of those teams and realize that some of them, if you're going to break up into percentage how much they pass the ball versus how much they run the ball, if you're anywhere even in that like 60-40 threshold of running over passing, then that, in my mind, leads to even more success considering you're not seeing that, and this is kind of more of their backup option when you're talking about 7-on-7.
I would agree. So there you go. A quick look at the 7-on-7 state semifinalists from last year. And I think that if you were a team that was playing in the Final Four at state 7-on-7 this year, you've got reason to be excited. I think there's a pretty decent correlation.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.